Hello and welcome to round 8, season 6 of the Drivers' Room standings. The season's last one of the year. CS Smith is champion, puts the duck, came second in season 6. In fact, CS Smith is in racing tonight. Okay, so driving pack is the track. Group 2 is the cars. Most people will go for super soft or mediums with no hard things. And over puts the duck for the pole, sit on the grid.
So we've got Senna on pole. He's going to be starting on by Knee Jogger and DJ Rice on the second row. We'll have Gadget in 5th and Muller CJ in 6th, both on the soft tyres. We've got Jules with a great 7th position and Ben up in 8th. And we've got V8 in 9th and Kamaru a little further down the grid than he'd probably want in 10th. And at the back we have Daz also starting on soft tyres. Going to be a 60-minute race as all DREC races are. And like we said, this is the final race of the season. And here we are on the grid.
See if we get a clean start. Heavy damage is on now in tier 1.
As it is. It's going to be an interesting start. Clocks the Duck, usually known as the best starter in the Group 2 class. Senna will taking his first pole of the year. And we'll see how that goes for him.
Yeah,
These
great lap.
are very difficult to start. Yes, it was a fantastic lap.
He's got wheel spin off the line there, Senna.
He has. Fox has also got wheel spin, but he's gone for the other style of start. He's gone for the burnout start with 4 wide down into turn 1. This is going to be interesting.
Spins and Senna's gone wide, he's gone off the track, he's hit DJ. He's going the way of Muller.
That's going to be engine damage for Senna for our pole sitter straight away. That's not how he wanted his first pole to convert. Meanwhile, back at the front, Gadget's made a lightning start up into 2nd.
Oh, Senna's gone to another incident. He's hit Muller into Ben and then pit manoeuvred Muller into the barriers. Meanwhile, Putz has got to clean you away.
He has indeed. He's going to want to navigate that chicane. Probably the hardest part of the track is that chicane. You come down the hill with immense speed. You've got to scrub it off and get it all sorted. As we see contact there in the back of the field. I think it was Kamara and Daz came together. Daz got a little wide out of the chicane and they clipped each other. We'll see if anyone got damage. He's on board with Jules, who made a good start up to 5th position on the soft tyres.
Yeah, he profited from the incident at the first corner. It looks like we've got 3 damaged cars coming round together there for definite.
What an absolute shame for those guys. And Daz also seems to have damage as we're back on board with Plux as he finishes the first lap. He's got a nice clean getaway, got a gap. He should be starting to break the slipstream, which should protect him from 2 things, both an attack by Gadget and also Gadget being able to sneakily save fuel. We've seen that done many times in Group 2. If you see, V8 looked like they went a bit deep there in T1.
It's a good start for V8. It's Muller goes in the pits, followed by Senna and Rice. All 3 have got damage. They've chose to get repairs done quickly rather than lose lap time.
To work out. A little bit of a... there was an error there by Plux. A little bit of a rear lock-up. As you see, Knee starting to pressure Gadget.
V8's got a good start for V8. It's been a while since he's been up that high.
Yep, we are. V8 is usually very good at the starts of races. He qualifies well, but it's kind of long-term pace. As we see Daz battling out there with that damage. Having issues.
Damage does affect these GR2 cars quite a lot. Plus, pulled out
down through the fastest section of the track. This is an absolutely cracking section of track, but it is it's quite tough. It's very one line. We've seen a few moves through here when we've been at this track before, but it's very risky to do so. You have to have full confidence in the person you're racing. As we see Senna, we'll have to see how him, DJ Rice and Muller come back through the field. All 3 cars look quick in practice. As we see Gadget still fending off Knee Jogger. No CS Smith tonight, so it's kind of the old guard returns to the front of the field. With Gadget, Knee Jogger and Plux. This was our kind of a finishing order for the first 2 seasons with Muller mixed in there as well. These were our top 3 drivers for most of it, but we've had an influx of new talent over the course of the year, which has kind of pushed these guys around kind of into the top 5-6 if they have bad races. As we have Jules up in 5th, and Ben, who's still got that damage that he picked up. Oh, did we see them get damage actually? I think that might have been on camera.
He was in the corner. Senna hit Muller into.
Yes,
straightened his car up. Muller took the rear corner of Ben.
Yep. You can see actually how much difference a full tank of fuel makes to these cars. The pole lap was significantly quicker. As we see, Flux is the only person with true clean air. Has only done the 24, and the pole time is right at the bottom of the 23s. So about 1.5 seconds difference between a full tank and no fuel that we run in qualifying trim. Gadget sets his new personal best lap time at 25.1. Now, but he goes wide, and that's going to allow Nijogger to possibly have an attack down into the tight hairpin.
Very hard to overtake through this part of the track, though.
It is very difficult because, especially in these cars, you've got that right-left complex, and it just. But he has managed to close up nicely. He can get a good exit as we jump back to Muller. This looks like he might be going for a move on Daz. Remember, Daz has got damage on that car.
Yeah,
this
I think Daz has.
Overtake.
Closing speed was really high, so that tends to say he's got some type of damage. I think Gadget is doing Dutz a favour here. I think he's pretty much holding Nijogger up.
We've seen this many times from Nijogger. Once he gets a sniff of a good result, he does usually not let it fall away from him. We saw that at Monza in season 5, where he kind of lucked himself into the lead and then was uncatchable. But other races we've seen him kind of fall back early and not really be able to drag himself out of trouble. But when he's on form, Nijogger is exceptionally fast, and Gadget is going to be having to fight with every tool he's got to keep him behind. To stay that close with the dirty air, that's very impressive by Knee. He's going to have to think about protecting his front tyres though at some point.
Yeah, it all becomes a kind of roll of the dice. Is it worth dropping back to over a second, or do you want to keep the pressure on and try and force a mistake?
We have seen mistakes by Gadget, but usually not in defence. He's usually more prone to mistakes during when he's on the offence. We've seen that a few times. He's made slightly over-ambitious lunges at points, but when he's defending, he's usually one of the widest cars and hardest drivers to overtake. As we're on board with Daz, who's still struggling with that damage, and now Rice is going to start catching up to him.
Yeah, I think Rice is getting past him.
I haven't jumped too far up the field yet. I was expecting a bit more kind of zip out of Rice. He looked reasonably fast in practice.
Well, to be fair, I saw his lap time. His lap time is pretty much the same as Gadget in second place, so it's really down to being in the wrong place at the wrong time in that one and getting taken out, which is a problem. I think he'd be on the back of these two.
Yep, very well likely. Probably the same with Muller and obviously Senna, who did get a big slide there from Gadget. He caught the inside of that curve. But Senna, even though he got a bad start, of course.
And here's the start again. So we'll have another look at it, and you see Senna drifts wide. Hits Nijogger, then gets on the grass, hits Rice as we look on board with Muller now, and he's had to hit the brakes to avoid both of them. As we carry on,
actually, you could see with Senna just before we get up towards the second part of the incident. You could see with Senna as he got back on the power, it was the turbo catching him out that caught the. Here we go. Yeah. Muller goes on the inside, and Senna kind of doesn't quite see him coming. It's a late move on Ben, and it kind of all just tumbles out of control. And I think that last pit maneuver was just a bit of I think getting stuck together. Senna probably had damaged the front of that car and was struggling to get it to turn right, and Muller was caught in a pit manoeuvre. Definitely not intentional, just a really unfortunate slow speed incident. You can see Flux already struggling with those front tyres. There's a lot of wear on those tyres. Maybe about the same as Gadget. Tyway is quite high in Group 2 though.
It's quite high. This track is quite high as well, lots of high speed corners.
It's a very abrasive surface, it seems.
I prefer it the other way around. I think it flows a lot better. It's anti-clockwise thing.
Yeah. Though I would say it's probably slightly harder to overtake the other way around.
Yeah, I have the other opinion. I think it's easier the other way around. But that's...
Either way, both layouts are good. I think you are right though, the other way around is more flowing as we see Gadget pits.
Yeah.
He's probably trying to protect himself against the undercut. As we said, Tyway's high here and you do get...
Kim Adamson going into the pits there. He's gone in, but he nearly didn't. He was in the background.
We saw that V8 earlier in the season when we were on the full layout of the Kyoto circuit. V8 caught the pit wall, got spun out of the pits, and then of course, because he passed the pit entry, he couldn't then enter.
Yeah,
basically finished his race.
A similar problem for Muller at 24-hour Nürburgring as well. He missed the pit entrance, hit it, and got reset onto the start-finish set, and that was the race over because he wouldn't let me pit, and the fuel was gone. I didn't get much favour.
Now, that is the problem with the Nürburgring. If you make that mistake, it's bad enough. If you make that mistake and you've got no fuel left in the car, that's basically a retirement because you'll be doing a 30-minute lap.
Yeah.
At 50 miles an hour.
His Butts goes in the pits. So does Nijogger, and is Gadget gonna go through to take the lead?
Nijogger thought about staying out though. If you looked, he was on the super soft tyres though, so that's a very impressive run. And he used less fuel than Plux. Probably because he could get away with a little bit of fuel saving behind Gadget at certain points. As we see, V8 has a look.
Yeah, he does.
He's on the older tyres, so we don't expect him to be able to attack consistently. And he's holding on to the back of this group, and if someone in that top three has a mistake with the heavy damage, he's got a good chance of maybe scraping a podium. As we see Miller pits there.
Rice goes through. Muller comes outside behind Rice, so he's dropped a position in his pit, but Rice has yet to pit for a second time after the damage.
This is another track, I think, that was designed with the pit lane in a slightly
awful place.
Dangerous, awful place. It kind of works the other way around, but this way around it drops you out in a really dangerous area. As we see Flux managing to hold on to that lead, despite the fact Gadget had the undercut. But you can see he's pulled the gap to knee, and Nijogger actually picked himself up for penalties to probably the chicane is the most likely place to pick that up. You just run over those curves a little aggressively. You don't actually pick up much time because you unsettle the car and actually lose time. But you still get the nice 1.5 second penalty, courtesy of Polyphony.
Yes. It looks like Muller's right in the slipstream now of Rice. He's got one lap older tyres, but his tyres will be up to temperature, and probably at the peak is the second lap out. Generally I find with the tyres, so it's now a bit of a foot race.
Have a better apex speed, and the exit speed will be better too. See how Rice does. Looks like Miller's going to get that, but Rice will be able to defend on his side. But Senna's come out as well. Makes it 3 wide, and that's almost a carbon copy of what happened way back in season 1 with Mac, Fours and Plux, but that didn't quite end so cleanly. Is the incident in which Plux was put into a half spin as we actually cut forward. We unfortunately just missed Senna trying to attack back on Muller. Muller has managed to hold it though. Senna will be on that 1 lap fresher tyres, but like you said, it takes a while for the tyres to get up to full temperature and grip these days. The tyre model has been updated over the course of the year to kind of bring in tyre heating a little bit more.
Yeah, they just need to put a tyre temperature on there so we can actually see when the tyres are warming up. I think that's something that'd be a well appreciated update.
Yep. Well, hopefully the partnership with Michelin will start seeing more tyre updates, though it's highly expected that most of that will transfer onto Gran Turismo 7. But either way, it is a good way for it to go. So we see Jules pit in 5th position. And he's done very well on fuel, actually, because he's gone a couple of laps longer than the leaders, and he's only used 6 more percent than Plux did. So maybe he's playing the long game there, trying to protect himself that way.
Senna's
he's going to go for a
bit of a lunge.
Big dive into turn 1.
I think lucky Mother saw him with a gadget. It was a big one there, so Dutz is definitely pulling out a bit of a lead on this second stint. And
yeah, it's actually, we just saw a flash of the fastest lap times as well, and Plux and Nijogger have almost identical best laps.
Yeah, this is why I think Gadget was holding Nijogger up.
Yeah, Nijogger is on the super softs, remember, though, so he's going to get a little bit more grip out of those, but he'll struggle slightly later on in the stint, especially when you consider... oh no, actually I'm mistaken there, because Gadget fitted first, so they might actually end up with similar levels of grip by the end of the stint, as we've got Ben now, who has got a big train of faster cars behind him.
Yeah, I think Ben may have damage again there. I'm not sure. We'll have to. No,
he does seem to be clean. He's alright. He's got a nice 0.4 second penalty, but we've still got plenty of time to burn that off. This will be probably a 4-stop strategy. And it does go for that dive into T1 again. And that's going to cost Muller because he wasn't able to get close enough to follow him through. Of course, Ben is racing for position. He's got every right to defend his position, but he also knows that these cars around him, he's not really racing on pace. He's only ahead of them because of that first lap incident. He's down in the 27s, whilst the quicker drivers are up in the 23s, 24s now, and actually he made a small mistake on the turbo there. As the power came on, he got a bit of wheel spin, but that's allowed Muller through.
I think he was very kind as well to Muller on that particular pass as well. And
yeah, probably so actually. I just noticed he's actually got traction control on, so he's probably unlikely to get turbo wheel spin. It's one of the things you have to learn to control in the car. As you take the traction control off, it does help because it allows the power to come down more aggressively and you can get more pace, but it has a small trade-off of you've got to be careful of it. As we see now, Gadget looks like he must have had a bad lap. He's at 26.1, so maybe he went wide somewhere. We didn't see that, but that's allowed Nijogger to close right back up.
I suspect probably the chicane, that's where people tend to lose, if they're going to lose any time. The downhill chicane is the tight chicane coming downhill is the one where people tend to lose it.
It's very easy to do, so you can just run a little bit wide onto that grass.
Yeah, or a little bit deep. Finn, Jules is still in 5th position. Good race for Jules. He's got to work on his consistency for 2020. He's quite quick, one lap. Finn is looks like Rice has got past Kim. Kim's had a problem now, no damage.
It's not no damage, but he's got very old tyres. I think he hasn't come in for a while. Those supers seem absolutely destroyed now.
Yes, with the new tyre model, I think people sometimes think that the red rudder appears is like it used to be, where you used to go about halfway down before you start losing a lot of grip. Now it tends to be where around 10 to 20% is when the grip starts to go.
Yeah, definitely. It's I'd say once the tyres hit about 30%, they're pretty much destroyed.
Yeah, they're dead then. Yeah.
It requires either a very gentle track to protect them, or very gentle driving to get them round, but you're not going to be able to set many quick laps. Especially on the supers. The supers get the most pronounced drop-off effect, unsurprisingly, because they are the softest tyre. But track right here, where it's long, fast sweepers at maximum speed, you just lose buckets of time on old tyres. That's why a 4-stop is probably going to be the most viable strategy for all the top drivers. Someone further down might try a 3-stop, but it's unlikely.
This new jogger's back into Gadget slipstream once again. I mean,
the fuel saving continues.
I think that's his best option at the moment, is to get Gadget on a pit stop. If I were near, I'd pit with Gadget as well. I'd pit at the same time.
It's the advantage you gain by being the second driver, is you can watch the person in front. He is on the supers, so you'd expect him to. He could go in on the same lap as Gadget because he's on supers, so he doesn't have to extend that stint. He can go in at the same time, pit, take less fuel on. It might not work this stint, but particularly at the end of the race, if he's managed to fuel save all these little times, he'll gain a big jump at the end, and if he can get in front, it very much looks like he's got more pace than Gadget. He's caught up to him twice now and stayed with him even with the dirty air effect, which is quite powerful here because it's all high-speed stuff, all front downforce limiting. As we see, Flux is kind of home free at the moment. He's got a maybe 5-6 second gap because Gadget's probably playing a little bit of defense now.
I think Flux owes Gadget a beer after this one. He's given him the race, I think.
I think a combination of Gadget's defence here, Senna's bad start and resultant calamity at the start has given Flux both a gap and not a actual rear gunner but an unofficial rear gunner, as Gadget again is going for that undercut. We don't see Nee follow him again. He may be playing the long game and do it on the last stint, but I think he's missed a trick there. I think he definitely could go in on the same lap, like we said,
or a lap earlier and get him.
Or a lap earlier even, and try and out undercut Gadget, especially if you put the soft on, because he's shown that he can make the supers last. So if you can make the softs last an extra lap or so and not lose too much pace, we'll be on for a good thing. As we see Rice still trying to claw his way back up through the field. Flux again with that gap gives him a chance to kind of react and not feel like he's going to get swamped immediately.
No, and plus it's a very, very, very quick pit stop here, so I mean Flux has got the time now to stay out definitely an extra lap and avoid any possible undercut if somebody was close to him and change his tyres. So it's an advantage once you get over that pit stop window in time, pit stop loss in the lead. You're pretty much set.
Yeah, so there's no mistakes.
Oh, feels like Kim got over the curb there. We just saw it. He got his wheels over the curb and got caught. It can happen here.
Can easily happen. Nee jogger pits as well. Flux stays out again, so he's going for kind of a 2-lap overcut on Gadget, which does make sense because Gadget pitted 1 lap earlier last time. As we get back with the action here on lap 18. Now seeing Flux pit, he's on his out lap and that gap is still comfortable, but Nee's pitted and came up behind Gadget.
Yeah, and Gadget's a sort of personal best set to him. 6/10 up on his previous.
Taken down into the 23s, I believe. So
if he can keep it through the lap. Oh, Senna's on the back of Jules.
Here we go, Senna doing a great recovery drive. We saw this actually in the very first race of DREC, all the way back last year. Senna had a unfortunate technical issue with a controller, and he buried it in a wall and dropped himself out of podium contention and drove all the way back into contention for the podium. That race finished with Flux, Muller and Senna half a second between each other.
Yeah, I remember that one greatly. Catching you on old tyres.
Yes, old tyres.
You had old tyres, I had new ones.
Yeah, and I wanted it to end 1 lap sooner than it did. It was the very first race I did with my steering wheel. I hadn't actually set it up fully. I actually still had the force feedback on 100%, and I've dropped it to 90 since. and it was quite the
tough race. It's a lot of corners.
It's a lot of corners back at Majori.
Yeah.
As we see Kim come in, Flux is now on his first flying lap. Gadget set. Oh wow, 3,000ths between the two fastest laps now. That's immensely close times. Maybe Nimesh closing just that little bit to pick up a little bit of slipstream, and Gadget's going to be kicking himself there because, of course, that point is always useful having. Stenna got the point for pole, and being that he hasn't had I think many podiums this season, actually, 5th place might be one of his better results of the season. He'll definitely get to keep that extra point. You see Rice there. Muller's back down to 9th. He's just pitted and taken some fuel. So he's just got past Daz, who hasn't pitted, and you can see that by the state of those front tyres. And it's almost all on that front left, to be fair. That's kind of your pace determining tyre. As we see, Flux didn't set fastest lap. He's on the supers, so you expect him now to be quicker than he was, but he could be. It's one of those things where you go from the soft to the super and you don't actually gain that much time. What does change a lot is the balance of the car. The car shifts from being a little bit oversteery to being quite understeery, especially these cars. There's something about the extra grip in the rear tyres which kind of overpowers the extra grip you get in the fronts. It's almost lends you to try something like supers on the front, softs on the rear, but unfortunately you can't set that kind of for your quali laps and then not have to do it and use it in the race where it's going to become lethal. But it would possibly be an optimal quali strategy, because the understeer of the supers, it can be quite it can put you off because you're expecting more front end than you actually get. At least I find.
Well, I agree with you. I've often found, and I've often qualified on softs purely because of that. The less grip sometimes helps to me. The car feels, especially in GR2, it feels a bit looser, so you can get more turning, especially on tight circuits.
FVC Jules coming to the pits now.
And TJ Rice as well following, and TJ Rice is on 31% compared to Jules 24%. So if you manage to save fuel as much as Muller tries to come through.
It's a fantastic looking livery on Muller's car this season. It's final season, we believe, of his association with Red Bull.
Yes,
we'll be having new title sponsors for next year. We'll see quite a few drivers changing teams, signing new sponsors, and changing up liveries for 2020. The same format will be there for next season, or next year. The only change will be kind of a progression from the LMP1 category of old in Group 1 to looking towards the future with the Vision GT cars coming in, which are actually a little bit slower than the LMP1s. They've got a little less downforce, but it's a more varied grid. Different cars should be strong at different tracks, and it should be allow a bigger spread of car choices. We've seen mostly 2 cars in that class. We've seen the Toyota, which has become very all-powerful almost because of its incredible hybrid system, and mostly the other car we've seen is the Porsche, which is the best handling car. It's got the best front end, but it suffers with massive hybrid understeer. And then there's the Audi Tractor, which is a wonderful car, but it's never quite as quick as the other two. It doesn't have quite the hybrid system, but it doesn't have quite the good handling. But it's a very good all-round car. Especially early in the year, we saw Nijo use it to great effect, but it kind of fell behind the other two, especially in popularity. But next seasons we see Nijo all over the back of Gadget still. It's been the same whole race. The new VGT class will have a mixture of hybrids and non-hybrids. We'll have some four-wheel drive cars in there. We'll have some two-wheel drive cars in there. There'll be some cars more focused on handling. It's going to be some with some ludicrously long top gears. But we will go to Le Mans at some point. That might come in handy. We have a really good overspeed. And it'll be a really interesting class to see how it changes. Other changes for next season is in Tier 1 there will be a success ballast system. So the ballast being a handicap on the car choices. So certainly the top 3 will be forced to swap out their most successful car, or most successful 2 cars, or most successful 3 cars, which should allow no one to run away with championships so easily. It should pin back, you know, the likes of CS Smith.
So talk to you about New Jogger's attacking gadget at the moment. It's always finished there. Sorry to interrupt you on that one, but
no.
New Jogger might have managed to get the move there.
I've kind of started waxing lyrical about next year and stopped focusing on what was in front of me.
Puts his lead is now 9 seconds. New Jogger is 0.5, and it's a big 26-second gap now, down to 4th place from 3rd.
Yeah. It's still holding in there though. It's done a great drive.
It's consistent drive, that's what it is. That's his key for V8, is consistency.
Gadget has hit it again. New Jogger's again allowed him to
get that
undercut him. But we'll see what happens. Butts is, I would say, 9 seconds ahead now. He should be covered from any sort of undercut. It will now probably require him to either make a fuel error or bin it in the wall.
Yeah, always possible.
Always possible, especially to Plux this season. He's usually fairly consistent, but this year got a little bit rattled by Smith's dominant pace, made mistakes at most races. The only race...
Oh, DJ Rice has just put it in the wall in the background.
Straight off. It's so easy to do. You've just got to run a tiny bit wide out that the penultimate fast S. You get stuck up on that curb on the final one, and it can spit the car out really nastily. As we see Rice there's. Luckily for him, he can just dive straight into the pits, so that's not so bad. As Nee in 2nd position, he's going to pit probably this time. We'll see how his fuel works. I didn't actually catch how much Gadget had on board, but
no, neither did I. To be fair, I didn't look. His New Jogger's going in.
Yeah, it's actually rare though to see the Lexus be stronger on fuel than the Nissan. The Nissan is very marginally better on fuel. We're talking, you know, probably about 0.2% per lap better, which does add up over the hour, but it's just interesting to note.
As we move forward now to lap 28, as we look at V8. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see. I mean, if people swap from the GTR to the Lexus, whether they notice any difference. One thing I found with the GTR this year is you can short shift it without losing too much speed.
Especially, and the other thing I've noticed in the Lexus is these cars have got a very limited top gear. So any track with a long straight, you can roll the mix down into even into mix 3, and you don't actually lose any top speed once you hit it. It was a very useful strategy to use at Saint-Croix with its very long straights. It was also useful at Bathurst when we were there, because again you've got the hill to kind of accelerate you, and then as you come over the rise on the Conrad Straight, you're gonna be able to roll down that mix, and it just helps save fuel. And when you're looking to win races, it's all about the marginal gains, and that can get you just a couple of seconds breathing space. If you don't have to pit for as long, it's always useful.
As Jules has gone in the pits.
Yes, he has, from a still very impressive 6th position. He's dropped 7th now, but that's due to strategy. He'll probably take those positions back.
And Senna's got past V8 in the pits as well, so...
Looks like he got the undercut there.
Yeah.
Ben's on fresh-ish tyres. So maybe Miller also on fresh tyres, so maybe Jules has dropped behind them on pace. But he will have the freshest tyres of the 3. There's Dadson Knights, he's having a quiet race. He got that damage early on, but he's kind of nice and comfortably now in 9th position. It's Kim who's actually probably been the biggest loser across the race. He's kind of dropped back further back than you would have expected. We see, Muller's got a great run on Ben there. Ben went too deep. It's all about getting on the power early out of that section. He'll have to run into this fast sweeper. So now back on board with Gadget. He hasn't set as good lap times on his new tyres than he did the previous previous stint. I have to see if maybe he's got a problem of some sort.
I don't know, I sometimes find it here, sometimes I don't know, I'll come out the pits and I just don't seem to get in the same rhythm on the next stint.
That is very true.
I often found that, I found it when we did this race the GR2 in the long version with the Miyabi track in GR2. I was running with F1 for the first pretty much 45 minutes, and then after that I came into the pits and I just couldn't get back in the rhythm and started losing the second and a half of lap. I don't know what it is. Maybe it is. I think it's like all sports, you get in the zone, and if you in a pit stop breaks that sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. So, or sometimes you can do the opposite. You kind of come out the pits and you're like, right, this has got to be the stint. This is the stint that's going to get me, up a position, and you drive too hard. And you can do two things there. You overdrive, which means you make mistakes on those first few laps, but you also take too much out of the tyres and you ruin the end of the stint as well, which is quite a common thing to have happen. Rice there pulling over probably to let Flux through. Yes, he does. Classic little back marker flash. In most racing series. As the blue Pepsi car goes by again. Looks like he's going to be pitting any time. On the state of that fuel, probably the next lap or so.
Yeah, I think so. So we've got Gadget 6 seconds off, no, 7 seconds off Butts. New Jogger's 3 seconds further down the line at the moment. So he's not managed to catch up on this stint.
No. He's on the supers again. Maybe Gadget went with a super short fuel because the gap has come down between Flux and Gadget. I don't believe Flux has made a mistake. I don't know for certain.
But we'll see on the next stop if his fuel is lower, then he's gone for a short stint.
Yeah, to try and give himself some lap time, but he didn't look like I say, he didn't put in very good lap times compared to what he's done previously, so it could be that he's overdriven slightly. We've seen that from multiple drivers before. You just know it's go time. You've got to make it happen, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I'm 4 tenths down per lap. Where's this going? And then you're like, oh, it's the end of the stint. My tyres are ruined. What?
Yeah, you're just seeing that from Muller's times before his pit stops. He was in late 25s. He's now in the low 24s constantly. So that's probably one of those times where he's come out and got the rhythm with the track.
Yep.
Kim's taking a look at DJ Rice.
Yeah. Rice on very old tyres now.
And I think he's not going to fight it.
No, there's no point. Not at that point. You can come back at him later.
You've got to pick your fights. Sorry, I meant to say finish, because if you don't pick the right fights, you're going to cost yourself time as much as the person behind you.
Yep,
as they've both gone in the pits now, and Gadget's on 1% and New Jogger's on 6% fuel.
Only a 5% difference between them. I thought it was going to be bigger. Maybe he's had to use a bit more fuel up to try and work the gap a bit, try and get it down a little bit. We'll be out fairly close. This time he's got a lot less fuel in than Gadget.
Yeah.
He's going to go maybe try and fuel save behind him. Go with the lighter fuel to start to try and put a little bit more pressure on Gadget by having a lighter car. He can go a bit faster if he can get the overtake done. He can then go into mix 2 and protect himself. Well, just get that gap, and then he can kind of manage it while still fuel saving. But this will raffle Gadget probably, because he probably expects to come out with a bigger gap than he's got.
And New Jogger is right there, and if he has going to have to fuel save, he needs to get this overtake done as quick as possible, and it looks like he's in a position maybe to do it.
Yeah, he's got a good run that time. Gadget didn't get a good run out the corner. Have a look down the inside. But Gadget's going to have to be able to swoop in. They're going to come really close to touching each other, but Gadget should have the better exit speed because he took the wider apex in.
As the race leader's gone into the pits.
As he has at the end of lap 34. Let's see where he comes out and how much fuel he takes up on board. And he's went back to the softs actually, interesting to spot there. Back to the softs after his earlier run on supers, and he's gone back to supers this time, so maybe he didn't like what he got both ways. And got used to the supers grip at the rear, went back to the softs and went, oh, now the car feels terrible at the rear. He's now trying to go back to the supers. He will be pushing probably for that fastest lap, as that point was. It doesn't matter to the championship. Smith has won that with a race to spare. That will probably be one thing to get some pride back of getting an extra fastest lap.
And new jogger's got to find a place now to get past.
He does indeed. He's going to have to use all of his overtaking prowess and force Gadget into a mistake, or force him into committing too much of his tyre resource early. He can kind of sit behind, but again, he might be using this as an opportunity to fuel save while he's stuck behind him. There will be definitive sections on this track where it is a one-line area, and you just have no chance of overtaking. So, if he can...
He's picking his points to attack. There's no point, I think, really attacking where you know that you haven't got an opportunity to overtake. You can sit in the slipstream and save fuel and then power up when you come down into this bubble corner. The turn 1 is a good overtaking opportunity as Rice just goes past Kim.
Yeah, Rice gets back past Kim. They must have both pitted. And we can see actually they almost managed to keep themselves back on the lead lap and get themselves back on the lead lap. Bux's first lap time doesn't look good at all actually. Gadget set a 23.7 to take fastest lap back.
Oh, he's nearly got on the inside of him there, just couldn't get in the power early enough.
No. He's there, buzzing in the mirrors.
This is where he's quicker than Gadget. He's coming out of this corner a couple of times. He's got really close to him, coming up to the non-sweeping right-hander, going up the hill.
Definitely so. It looks like maybe Gadget got a better run this time and he might have pushed it a little harder, trying to force the issue, and he's probably got on the power a little later. The thing that you can really do with these cars is if you let off a little earlier, get back on the power earlier, you come back onto the power band a little bit earlier, and it makes such a huge difference with the turbo lag in these cars. Between that and the slipstream, you can really rock it up behind someone. But you've got to kind of time it right because the turbo is such a limiting factor to how fast you can accelerate in these cars. If you get out of the turbo power range.
Senna just nearly went off.
He manages to get away with damage. I can't tell actually. Didn't see it in time.
Didn't see it in time moving myself.
Maybe I saw maybe a flash on the rear, but I wasn't sure. And that would be really unfortunate if he did get it, because he's had a fantastic recovery drive. Again, he's pretty close to the end of the lap, so if he does need to pit, he'd be okay. But it looks like he's gone past the pit, so he's okay.
And he's under threat from V8. He only just turned in. He should have been a bit more aware there, Senna, and I think he could have damaged V8 there with that.
I think they're okay, but yeah, that was very close as we now jumped ahead. Oh no, we jumped back, so I should look at the overtake. Mistaken. Let's see what happened with Senna then. So Senna doesn't look like he's on particularly old tyres, but Senna is pretty bad on his tyres. It's probably his biggest weakness. He's a very fast driver, he's a very consistent driver. He just unfortunately has tyre wear issues. Yes, he does have rear damage. I did spot that correctly, so this is him just coming across, didn't quite see it. It's not a huge bit of contact between the two cars. It looked like V8 got away clean, so a near miss, let's say. I haven't lost too much time, but yeah, a little bit more awareness from
he
Senna.
needs a bit more awareness. The incident, turn 3 on that one, he should have been aware that he was damaged and somebody coming behind him. As he goes in the pits now.
Yeah, so he's realised that trying to make that work is going to be difficult, as we're back with this battle that has gone on for 53 minutes, almost 54 minutes now, of just endless
hassle.
Fence from Gadget, hassle from Knees. Still got a half-second penalty. So that is interesting to note. Gadget again just can't get away from him, and I'm hearing that he has had a technical issue with a pedal stick. The pedal base for his wheel was not secured properly throughout the whole second half of this race, which is why he has struggled at times. As you can see, really struggling to get back on the power, and this might be Knee's best chance yet. He's underneath the rear wing. If he can get it down the inside, which the Gadget is leaving it open. If I was him, come across and taking that inside line away, because it's so easy to just stick it down the inside there. It's a heavy braking zone. You can block past someone off. Gadget is going to have a little look, but I'd focus more on the run up to turn 3. It's a lower percentage chance than turn 1, but it's still there. But he's dropped off the back a bit. See how the two cars come through here. Gadget gives a better run through the a bit too much of a stomp there. He might have got too much of the turbo. That's Knee through. That's 54 minutes of pressure for you. In the end, a small slip up turns up, and actually I think Gadget has backed off. So I'm guessing he's gone to auto drive mode to fix out that problem.
Yeah, well, as much as it might be a problem, it's a racing driver excuse still, and I'm going to let him off too easy.
I think the fact that he has gone to auto drive though pretty much confirms something was amiss. We'll see if his lap times improve.
Oh, that's racing though.
That is racing. You know, he hasn't lost a whole boatload of points. It's one position. He'll still be on the podium with as long as no calamities occur. Ben's got the blue flags. It'll be interesting actually. This is the second race in a row that Flux is going to be behind Ben at the end of the race. Just this time round he's a lap ahead of Ben, and put in a pretty fantastic performance at Willow Springs last time out, kind of beating some drivers who he usually beat behind. He just kept it clean for the majority of the race while others had problems.
Well, that's the key to Willow Springs as much as anything.
That's kind of Ben's kind of classic race really. He doesn't normally have the most startling pace, but he doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and he's very good at being an opportunist and knowing what's the most he can get out of his car, and then allowing others to make mistakes, pushing a bit too hard. But yeah, Flux has looked awful on this stint actually. He's buried in the mid-24s when he's got no fuel in the car. You'd expect him to be a little bit quicker. Same with me here.
If you've got the lead, you're not under threat. Sometimes there's a case for maintaining the gap rather than pushing yourself too far out this thing. You could quite easily put it into the wall if you go a little bit too fast.
Fox was infamous for pitting with 2 laps to go at Missouri West, I think it was, to go and steal past his lap up of Gadget, because that track had a ludicrous pit stop time of about 3 seconds.
Yes, I remember that there. That's unfortunate.
For 2 laps to go.
It was for me, in my own personal opinion, it's unfortunate that PD have changed the pit stop times in the lobbies as well as the FIA. I know why they've done it in the FIA, so people will use different strategies on shorter races, but on an hour race, we still get strategic battles in this, but it kind of negates the the advantage of being a good tyre saver a little bit, I think, having quick pit stops.
And it compresses the number of usable tyre compounds down as well.
Yeah, it does. It does, because I know Smith used mediums on his last stint at St Croix, but he had quite a bit of lead, and it's that on that particular track, the nature of it, there's less difference between the tyres as V8 looks at the inside of Senna again into the same corner as before, and this time Senna's seeing coming. Is he going to go for the undercut coming out? No, he's not got the room.
I have to push this hard. Senna did go and take fastest lap, so he's got pole and fastest lap, just not had the race he probably wanted.
Well,
this is a great little battle right at the end. Now we're going to get another lap in.
Yeah, I think he was on pole position. He should have guaranteed himself a start and maybe put his traction control on 1 or 2 to make sure he got off the line cleanly. It doesn't affect these cars.
He didn't have on traction control on 1 actually. I think what he did was he missed the lights going out and bogged down. It's such an important thing to get the reaction time there.
As he goes on, he's got the inside to the next corner. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
Got the power nicely, he can block him off. But V8's sticking it in there. Yeah. You've got to give him his due there. That was a great bit of aggressive driving, but now Senna's going to have the inside line here. V8's going to have to be careful to try and get that under over.
As we look in the top corner to see Klutz take the checkered flag.
One more time of the year. And then we've got Nee, who's had a brilliant second place. Put the pressure on Gadget all race, and finishes a great second place. Gadget unfortunate to come home third, and should probably have come second if it wasn't for issues and probably not quite the perfect execution of his strategy. I think he probably should have gone with a little less fuel for that final stint and kind of tried to give himself a gap and then fuel saved a little bit at the end with a slightly more food or missing. But it's so hard to know what's going to happen. And there's V8. He just couldn't quite hold off Senna. Senna will take fourth.
A great drive.
Senna kind of feels like got away from himself. A great comeback drive though. Gets fastest lap to show just how quick he was. V8, fantastic drive from him. One of his most consistent, best drives of the whole year. Miller, good recovery to 6th. You consider he was, sideways in the wall on lap 1. And it's not the first time that's happened where it wasn't his fault. Daz will take a strong 2nd, Jules in 8th. But here's our podium. We've got Fox the Duck, Knee Jogger and Gadget. And that's the end of the race. And thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah.
You see the final standings. I'll let you run through them.
Yeah, so Smith obviously won season 6, so he's our season 6 champion. Good, some brilliant driving from Smith through the season. If we look at the Group 2 class, Klutz by a mile, 45 points there from Gadget and Nijog and Fear. Although had a couple of bad results and dropped down, so GR2 champion is Klutz the Duck, well deserved. Consistency over the year, and the annual championship as well, as Klutz the Duck. It's the same order, Gadget, Nijogger and Muller. Klutz was a big win there, over 200 points, so congratulations to Klutz for that, a well deserved win. Soon, January the 16th, start of the 2020 Drivers Endurance Championship. January the 16th, that is. A new, as we've discussed earlier on, as put third for 2020 GR1 VGTs, as we take a look at some footage from the sprint race earlier on, as Mac got stuck on the grid. He probably won't like that being shown. Special thanks to Gadget for organising it, Daz for doing the driver avatars and various other things he's done. Our YouTubers who over the year for tier 1 and tier 2, Klutz, Nijogger, Muller, Kim, Jammy, TJ Rice and AGT Racer Grimlock. Mirza, thanks to him for putting the drivers' room together. It's the man with the idea, and he sometimes gets a bit of stick, And most importantly to all the competitors who've joined in and with the fair racing over the year. It's been a very enjoyable season in both the Sunday League, the Super Formula, the Endurance Championships, the Super Saturdays, the Group C. Unfortunately I only managed to compete in one season, but it's all been fun. It's the drivers who make it, and as we pretty much come to the end, I know Putz wants to add anything.
Oh, just say what a fantastic year of racing we've had. We've had a massive growth, and everyone, you know, has come in. It's been a fantastic competitor. We've got, you know, tier 2 in DREC now. We've got 3 tiers in Sunday, and yeah, we've got other things lined up. We've got junior teams in DREC, which is taking a new look at improving tier 2 drivers into tier 1. We've got new classes, we've got, you know, new battles. We'll have new drivers come in, I'm sure, over the year who will show their skills. We'll have exciting new talent, and yeah, just as it says now, see you next season. It's going to be a great year. Thank you, Miller, for having me. And,
no problem.
Forward to Lights Out.
Okay, good night. Oop.